All right, we're back on KUGR Cougar College Radio. I'm in studio here with Robin Dich, co-host of Cougar Sports Spotlight. And now on the phone with us, we have Sports Radio KJR co-host for the Ian Furness Show, 12 to 3 p.m., Jason Puckett. How you doing, Jason?
Good, guys. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been on these airwaves, but I remembered a long time ago doing exactly what you guys are doing. But I think you guys have a more of a plush time slot. I think I was like 12 to 2 in the 12 in the morning till 2 in the morning.
Wow,
something like that. So that was a little rough back in the day, but it's always a pleasure.
Hey, so Jason, to me, this story is almost laughable. What are you hearing about Harbaugh? Not just the whole trade with Cleveland talk, but just what the relationship is in that front office now. It just sounds like it's in shambles.
I mean, I think you've always kind of heard the rumblings that they just did not get along all that well. When I say they, Harbaugh and Trent Baalke, who is the GM. So I think that's kind of always has been out there. And then I think anyone that has kind of been associated with the organization down in San Francisco and then even with Stanford, that Harbaugh, he has a great amount of success. I mean, there is no debating that. I mean, wherever he has gone, whether it's San Francisco now, Stanford before that, and then San Diego, University of San Diego, he has always been successful. But the one kind of constant in that success has always been he tends to rub people the wrong way just with his styles. He's kind of, he's got an abrasive personality. And if they don't win, will that personality start to wear on the players and then start to wear on people that he works with? If two just kind of alpha males in Harbaugh and Baalke, and I think clearly Harbaugh wants to have more power. I mean, I think certainly what he witnessed with Seattle winning the Super Bowl, and he looks up here and he sees that, Pete Carroll, who, that's a nemesis of his. He wanted to beat him in college. He wants to beat him in the NFL.
Right.
And I think he looks at Carroll and says, all right, that guy just won a Super Bowl. He's going to get paid, probably one of the top coaches in the league, and he's got what I want. And what that is final say over personnel. And he's the president of the organization. And I think Harbaugh wants that. But, every indication coming out of San Francisco is that they will not give him that type of power, and I think he wants that.
And, yeah, you look at just his personality, like you said. For how long does it take till it pushes too much? Do you think this is the off season, or do you think it continues, and then maybe if something happens this season, then he's gone?
I think if they don't, I think it's a high possibility if they don't win this year and win the Super Bowl, that I think that they part ways. Whether it's him or they just decide, listen, we don't want to bring him back for his final year of his contract. I mean, you get in a tricky situation here if you're San Francisco. I mean, he's going to enter 2014 and then play that out and go into 2015, the final year of his deal. I mean, that most coaches don't do that. I mean, you would think that something would be resolved here with his contract coming up here fairly soon. Listen, if you don't think you can work with him behind the scenes and his attitude is getting too much to where you can't deal with it, then move on and try to find somebody else. You go find another head coach. I mean, that in 3 years is going to take you to the NFC title game, the Super Bowl, and the NFC title game. I mean, you can't sneeze at his success. I mean, really, he's a few plays away from being to 3 straight Super Bowls.
Right.
I mean, think about the Giants loss. I mean, it's a muff punt. This year it's a tip pass. I mean, he is. And can you imagine what we'd be talking about right now if this team had been to 3 straight Super Bowls? So, you better have a great plan B if you decided to part ways with him. But boy, if they don't get something done here shortly, and they don't get, let's say they don't get back to they make the playoffs, they don't get back to the championship game, I definitely could see a move, either him or the organization just going a different direction.
So I think that if they were actually seriously talking to the Browns about a trade like this, like you said, they had to have a plan in place. Is there a thought out there that, they're going to have to pay somebody? Whether they re-up Harbaugh or get someone else, they're going to have to pay someone more than they're paying Harbaugh now. Do you think they went after a Tony Dungy or a Gruden or a Bill Cowher and just saw what the interest was out there?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I'm curious. I wonder if it ever got to that point where they, maybe they did. I think probably every organization, you guys know this. Bill Moose always likes to talk about this one. He always have a short list, and I think probably everyone has a short list. So I'm sure Jed York and Trent Baalke have a short list of who they would bring in. I don't think necessarily you'd have to pay him more than he's making now. I think he's at like $5.5 million right now, I think is what he makes, maybe about $6 million. You could always hire within. You could promote Greg Roman, their offensive coordinator. You can promote Vic Fangio, their defense coordinator, if you wanted to. Certainly, the name that will catch everyone's attention will be Stanford head coach David Shaw. Would Shaw follow him? He has NFL experience, having been an assistant in the league before. Would he, he followed him at Stanford. Would he follow him at San Francisco? Those other big names, if they were to bring in a big name like Grudenkower, you're talking about $6.5, $7 million probably to get one of those head coaches, maybe even more to come in there. I don't know if they've had those conversations, but I'm sure that they have a list to replace him. I mean, again, you've got to find someone that can equal the success of Jim Harbaugh or take it a step further that he's done in the first 3 years on the job.
So what does this do for this upcoming season and upcoming draft? There's going to be a lot of tension. Do you think this could become a distraction within the organization as the season goes on, and that could lead to a less successful season than years past for Jim Harbaugh?
I think absolutely. I think that it's a huge distraction. I mean, I think him coming into looking at the final year of his deal, and then you got Colin Kaepernick who wants a new contract. What does he want to be paid? I think there's a lot of off-the-field distractions that may end up hurting this football team. And, let's say they struggle out of the gate. I mean, those talks, those rumors, those constant questions about his contract, if he doesn't get something done, is going to be brought up all the time. So, I think this is a potentially huge distraction. Now, if you're a Seahawks fan, or a Rams or Cardinals fan, this is great. I mean, especially if you're a Seahawks fan, you want chaos down there. I mean, they are the number one team right now in the NFC that is going to challenge you to get back to the Super Bowl. So, I think there's a lot of chaos going on down there. I mean, they've got two big problems right now. One, do they want to commit a ton of money to Colin Kaepernick? Do they think he truly is the guy? And then now Jim Harbaugh. I mean, this is as I think is Tim Kawakami, who is, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, the columnist down in the Bay Area, had said he's a very combustible individual and personality. Right. So, and I think those two personalities in Baalke, again, the GM and Harbaugh, I mean, I think, if they continue to have conflicts, this thing is, it doesn't look like this thing is going to be in good hands for the long run. It just seems at some point this thing is going to end. And I think as Jed York has been pointed out down there, York has kind of put all his eggs into Baalke's basket. He has signed him through, I think it's 2017. He gives him, the final say, all the say on personnel. And so, I think Harbaugh, I think he wants, again, going back to what I said earlier, I think he wants what Carroll has. And I think that's the control, the final say over player personnel. There was an incident quickly that, this year where when they lost their starting fullback to an injury, he wanted to bring in, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Marisic. Harbaugh wanted to bring him in for a tryout or bring him on the team. And Baalke said, no, we're not bringing him in. I'm going to bring in somebody else. And I think that's the issue. I mean, right there. They just don't seem to be on the same page right now.
All right, we got about 4 or 5 minutes left before Jason Puckett's got to head off to his own show. Jason, what's the Steve Ballmer hockey news? And is this, as a secondary part of this, is this possibly the path to get the NBA back?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I mean, I think that they, if people don't know the story, the NHL has been floating a lot here with Seattle of late. There have been a ton of stories that have come out. Jeff Baker's done an excellent job, covering this story for the Seattle Times, and he had mentioned that there could be an announcement soon that the NHL really does want to expand by 2 teams. There could be an announcement soon that, once the Olympics were over, that the NHL would like to make a decision. And, that's not like a day after or a week after. Maybe it's a couple months after, but they'd like to make an announcement that they are expanding. And Seattle has been rumored to be one of the 2 teams that would, or one of the 2 cities that they would expand to. The gentleman I do the show with, Ian Furness, had went on the air last week, and we talked about this, where he had heard that there are three groups that are actively pursuing bringing a franchise here.
Mm-hmm.
One group has been so serious that they have actually met with NHL legal counsel, but we didn't know who was a part of that. And then Jeff Baker goes on, again from the Seattle Times, he goes on a radio station up in Vancouver, BC, Team 1040, and he gives out the names of who these ownership groups are. We know most of them. Well, we know all of them, actually. Don Levin was a guy that he wanted last year or 2 years ago when Hansen was talking about building the arena. Don Levin wanted to build it over in Bellevue to kind of be a competitor to that. He has been mentioned. He owns a minor league team in Chicago. And then the combination of the two guys out of New York, Bartosak and Anthony Lanza, who are kind of younger guys, kind of the mold of Chris Hansen. They've been working with Jeremy Roenick, perhaps of bringing a team here. And then lastly, which has been the first time I've ever heard this publicly mentioned, Baker mentioned Steve Ballmer. And I think that caught everyone by surprise. I mean, okay, Ballmer's now interested in doing it. I think it's exactly that. I think they need to get that arena built to eventually bring the NBA back. And the quickest way to get that arena built, remember, all these guys got a lot of money put in down there, especially somebody like Chris Hansen. He's got over $100 million in land he's purchased down there. I think the quickest path for them, and it appears the NHL is willing to expand before the NBA wants to expand or relocate, is to get an NHL team first. I mean, really, the long-term success of that arena is based on two people occupying that arena. So I think they look at that as a business move. Let's get the NHL team first now so we can build the arena, and the NBA eventually will come.
You know, I was an intern at KJR as we were talking about Sacramento and all that.
You were a decent intern, Rob. I mean, I wouldn't say you were really like the top 2 or 3.
I mean, I tried.
Like middle of the road, but we allowed you to stay
I'm like the guy who comes off the bench that gives you a spark. That's what I like to think of.
Yeah.
While I was there, the whole Sacramento thing was going on, and a lot of buzz, a lot of anticipation that we were getting something out of that whole situation. But of course, just like the other years, it kind of fell through, and you covered it. You're down in Texas covering it in the owners meeting. Is there any skepticism from your part? I mean, you've been through this for 3-4 years now. Do you think this could actually happen, or is it just another leverage thing, or just something to put Seattle's name into?
I don't think it's Rob. I don't think it's a leverage thing. I think it's a reality. I mean, I think they truly do want to expand. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they have gone on record saying, this is going to be a reality at some point. And I think they look at Seattle as a real viable market. I mean, I think a team and organization that plays a big part in this are the Canucks. I mean, the Canucks have not had a regional rivalry. They just don't. And I think they would certainly bridge that gap. I mean, we're talking about two cities that are 2.5 hours away, and it would be a great I-5 rivalry. This is different. There's not a team that's willing to move right now. I mean, you said this last year with Phoenix. I think Seattle, in a way, was being used just to get a deal done in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. And, they eventually did get a deal done down there. This is more about them being pretty open with wanting to expand and mentioning. I mean, the deputy commissioner, Bill Daley, who serves right underneath Gary Bettman, the commissioner, has said, we'd love Seattle. It would be a great place to go and expand our league. So they've gone on the record with that. So I think this is a little bit different. I think most people here are tempering their enthusiasm because of exactly what you just said, Rob. I think you go through that whole thing last year with Sacramento. Right. We thought that the Kings were coming here, and then it didn't happen. So I think people are being a little bit more reserved this time when the NHL is being mentioned.
Last question for Jason Puckett here before he goes off to work with Ian Furness from 12 to 3 on KJR Seattle. NFC West or the field in the Super Bowl next year?
NFC West or the field? Oh, wow. It's pretty, to win the whole thing?
Yep, to win the whole thing.
I'll take the NFC West. I'll take Seattle. I just maybe I'm a homer. I just think that I think what happens with San Francisco, they have such a weird next season for them of everything that we've discussed before. Seattle, despite who they may lose, is still the most talented team in that conference and in the league. And I don't think there's anyone, honestly. I can't envision anyone from the AFC winning or beating anyone from the NFC. I just don't see it.
All right. Well, that's Ian. That's not Ian Furness. That's Jason.
I like to be Ian, though. Really, I wake up every morning thinking, what can I do to become Ian Furness?
Well, when I was down in studio at KJR, you were Ian that week.
It's true.
He disappeared for Apple Cup week. Well, that's Jason Puckett. He has the 12 to 3 show with Ian Furness on KJR Seattle. So you can tune in there on 950 KJR AM in Seattle, or you can go online and listen. Thank you, Jason. Hope to talk to you soon.
Guys, anytime. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Go Cougs.
Right,
Go Cougs. All right. This is KUGR, Cougar College Radio. For our last segment, we will be talking Mariners, and we will be right back on the Rex Carlin Show. And we're back on KUGR, Cougar College Radio. This is the Rex Carlin Show. In studio with me is Robin Dich, host of the 12 to 1 Cougar Sports Spotlight, which is a daily show. Apparently you did something right to get a daily show.
Right, exactly. Not too bad.
All right, so for last 10 minutes here, let's talk a little Mariners. The Iwakuma injury is...
What is wrong with his fingers? I can't figure it out. There's something wrong with his fingers. There's something happening. Maybe it's I would say it's an Asian thing, but my hands are pretty good. Like, my hands are all right. But I don't throw random weird pitches like Iwakuma does. But it's like there's something wrong with his hands all the time. Sorry, I just had to get that out there.
Yeah, I don't think the Mariners were counting on this being this happening. I think everyone was hoping for like best case scenario. Everyone gets out of course everyone hopes for best case scenario, but in this case especially when we get Cano, when we all really feel like we were still one piece away, needing a hitter to back up Cano to protect him in the order. I think everyone was just really hoping that we could get through everything healthy and then see how this played out.
Right.
But he couldn't even make it 3 days.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a little scary. You want to make sure everybody gets through training camp and whatnot because, yeah, there's a lot of hype around this team. I mean, the time to succeed maybe isn't right now because, Cano's an investment. You don't invest things to see something happen right away. You invest for the future, and it'll make it tough to really. At least we need to be competitive this year, and then we'll get another free agent hopefully to come in. I was hoping for Matt Kemp. I think he's gonna have the best season of his entire career this year, but we had to give up too much. But I mean, yeah, I think it's scary that the third place Cy Young Award winner is kind of on the DL right now. Probably won't even make opening day roster, which will be tough. But the great thing about the Mariners organization is if there's a place that has depth, it's definitely the starting pitching. And you have Paxton sitting back there, or not Yukuma, excuse me, Walker as well. And there's others, Bevan, we've seen him before. He's had success in AAA. Maybe this is the year he translates. Who knows? I mean, there's a lot of question marks, of course, because we are the Seattle Mariners. But I guarantee we trade away Bevan, he becomes a 4-time Cy Young Award winner somewhere else.
Well, that happens with everybody.
Exactly.
What really gets to me is the fact that the Orioles got Nelson Cruz for 1 year, $8 million, and we couldn't beat that.
Right.
And then the Mariners claim, or the reporters are claiming that the Mariners are saying that they didn't want to take the risk on Cruz, different ballpark, and post PEDs. But come on, a post PED Nelson Cruz in Safeco Field is better than almost anyone that I can think of that's going to be hitting after Cano that we have right now.
I think there's a lot of factors into this. It's a lot of bad signings in the past. With the Mariners, I think they don't want to get any more slack for that. I think they don't want to really take hits from it because, I mean, I can go down the list and Adrian Beltre, Richie Sexton, I can't even think of his name, Sean Figgins, there it is. He already left my brain.
Eric Bedard.
Yeah, Eric. I mean, the list goes on, and I think they didn't want to take slack. I also think that Nelson Cruz didn't want to play in Seattle because he's afraid that he won't succeed. And signing a 1-year deal, he wants to be in a good place because if you're in a good
hitter's
place,
ballpark.
Yeah, if not even a hitter's ballpark because Baltimore is one and Seattle is not one. But is on a successful team that makes him look better. And that way, maybe after this 1-year deal, he can prove that he can play still without PEDs. Now, he goes to Seattle. You look at it, post PEDs, we don't know what he's capable of. We don't know how long he's been taking PEDs. Was he taking in the minors when he was just raking the ball left, right, center field, everywhere? I mean, the guy was hitting 300 over a 300 average and over 25 home runs. I mean, that is a player you want, but will he be able to do that? And I think the Mariners didn't want to take a chance on signing another person, and Nelson Cruz didn't want to take a chance of having a bad time in Seattle, which that happens a lot for a lot of free agents and not able to get a contract the year after.
Is the Franklin Gutierrez news disappointing, or is it relief?
I laugh because I think he's one of the greatest defensive center fielders to ever, even touch the field. And that's saying a lot because I've seen Griffey, I've seen Mike Cameron play during my time, but he's
not out there.
Yeah, but the years that's what I was going to get to, the years that he was out there, you look at the production he had. I mean, he was hitting over 400 one year. You remember that? He was hitting over 400 after 2 months, which is, I kept refreshing the page because I thought it was about after 3 games, and I couldn't believe it. But, I mean, I get what he's doing, and I'm glad he's doing it because maybe he can come back and give some really productive years off the bench, be a utility guy, kind of come off and be able to play again, because the guy is unlucky. That's all it is. I mean, it's not like he's been injuring himself on the field. I mean, he got hit in the head with a ball, which, I don't know how that feels because I've never been thrown at by a major league pitcher, but he got hit in the head in that. He had a internal, illness with himself. So it's been rough. I'm glad he's taking a year off. It kind of makes it easier for the Mariners franchise to say, hey, we need a new center fielder. We won't be able to put Franklin Gutierrez out there. Someone's got to step up.
Now, Ryan Divish was on the show 2 weeks ago, Mariners beat writer for the Seattle Times, and he said was that this illness he has an immune, I believe he said it was some sort of immune deficiency where that this isn't something where at some point it's going to get better and he's going to be good to go. Mm-hmm. What Ryan said was that this is never going to be a full-time center fielder again.
Exactly.
He's at best what he's going to be good for, it sounds like, is maybe 50 to 60 games off the bench, and even then it's pushing it. Because it's not a sort of thing where at some point you get better and then you're good. These things keep reoccurring, and I don't think that we're ever going to see what you talked about, the greatest defensive center fielder we've seen in a while.
2 years.
he's I'm telling you, if best case scenario happens and he's like the 4th outfielder, that's going to be the greatest defensive 4th outfielder that you've ever seen ever.
I agree. And it's really sad because he had so much potential. I mean, he was such a great find by Zarenzik, and he was able to use him for the first few years, and everyone loved him. Everyone really thought this guy could be, if you're going to put a 4-player Mount Rushmore right now, current players, he might have been one of those guys at this point in time. I mean, who knows? I mean, his highest peak was at 400 average and a Gold Glove. I mean, you don't see that every day. I mean, the only time we saw that was with Griffey. And not to say that they were on the same level, of course, but I mean...
But he could have been building.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we could have built off of him. He could have been the center fielder that we've always needed and not force Michael Saunders into anything that he cannot be. And I think he takes a year off. It's good for him, good for his career, and maybe he'll be able to make a comeback. I'm rooting for that, but at this point, it's, there's nothing we can do, nothing the Mariners can do. It's just on him now at this point. And I mean, the contract we signed him to was, hey, if you can get on the field, we'll pay you. And, that's just not going to happen.
991 career fielding percentage for Franklin Gutierrez.
That's Ichiro numbers. I mean, think about it. Him and Ichiro out there, they were Gold Glove players next to each other. I mean, that's what you want, and that's what happened also with Mike Cameron. I mean, the success really in the area that we've been struggling with since Ichiro has hit past his prime and Mike Cameron left and all these other outfielders left was we didn't have an outfield anymore. I mean, it's plug and play this past few years, and that's what's tough about it, and you can't have that happen.
All right. So we're getting to the top of the hour. So next week we'll be on at 10 o'clock again, and we're going to have a great show for you next week. This has been Rex Carlin on the Rex Carlin Show with my in-studio guest, Robin Dich, helping me co-host in the second half of today's show. I would like to thank Jacob Thorpe, the beat writer for the Spokesman Review, covering Washington State basketball and football. Zach Levine, UCLA basketball player, Seattle born and raised. And Jason Puckett, co-host on the Ian Furness Show, 12 to 3 on Sports Radio KJR Seattle. This has been the Rex Carlin Show on KUGR, Cougar College Radio. Have a good day, everyone. Cougar Sports Spotlight will be at the top of the hour with Robin Dich.